Okay, listeners, so we're 2 weeks out from the election, and things are getting interesting.
Interesting is one way to put it.
We asked you to send in some articles that caught your eye, analyses that went beyond the usual, horse race coverage.
And wow, did you deliver?
We're talking market indicators, economic whispers, stuff that makes you wonder if the market itself is trying to tell us who's going to win.
It's like everyone's placing bets, but instead of at the racetrack, it's with their wallets.
Exactly. But let's start with the obvious. Those polls. You'd think by now we'd have a clear favorite.
Not even close. It's still anyone's game. Like those Real Clear Politics polls, they pulled data from all over. They're showing it could be a Harris lead, or we're looking at a photo finish in those swing states.
Because those swing states, those are the keys to the kingdom.
Absolutely. Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Nevada. Those are the battlegrounds. And get this, RCP is showing Trump ahead in all 7.
All 7.
All 7. It's within the margin of error, sure, but still not exactly a common occurrence.
So are we talking potential upset? Because we've got these graphs, right? Back in September, everyone's neck and neck in those swing states. Then October hits, bam, things start shifting.
Shifting is an understatement. If that trend keeps up, well, let's just say it could be a landslide for Trump.
And that's just the polls. But then you've got these 10 market indicators, these economic signals that are practically screaming Trump victory.
It's that whole voting with their feet thing, but instead of feet, it's dollars and cents.
So what's the first clue in this economic mystery?
Let's start with the obvious betting odds. The Real Clear Politics average right now gives Trump a 60% chance of winning.
60%.
60. Harris is lagging behind at 38.6%.
So even the bookies are leaning that way.
It's interesting, right? And if you track the trend, it's like a mirror image of those swing state polls. Close, 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 and then October hits, boom, this divergence in favor of Trump.
Okay, so betting odds, check. What else?
Well, let's talk Trump Media and Technology Group. That's the company that owns Truth Social.
Yes, Truth Social.
This stock, it's basically a barometer for Trump's influence in the market. And get this, it's gone up 169% in the past month.
169%. That's not a bump. That's a full-on leap.
It's huge. And it's not just Truth Social. Look at Rumble, that video platform popular with, shall we say, a certain demographic. They've seen a 16% increase in the past month.
It's like we're watching the digital landscape rearrange itself based on who people think is going to be calling the shots. Wild.
Yeah.
But let's get back to those market indicators. What else is pointing towards a potential Trump win?
All right, let's talk about something a little closer to home. The Mexican peso and the U.S. dollar. One of Trump's big campaign promises this time around, higher tariffs on Mexican goods, especially cars.
He's even talked about raising them to 200% to protect those U.S. manufacturing jobs.
Exactly. And the market has noticed. This past October, we saw a huge devaluation of the peso against the dollar.
So they're anticipating those tariffs, and a Trump win is a very real possibility.
It would seem so. And it's not just Mexico either. You mentioned the U.S. dollar. It's been strengthening lately, and a lot of analysts are attributing that, at least in part, to this very real belief that Trump might win and slap on those protectionist trade policies.
Right, because those policies are meant to boost American industries, but they can also ruffle some feathers globally and affect how currencies are valued.
Global economics are a delicate dance, my friend.
It's a good reminder that what happens here doesn't stay here. An election in one country can send shockwaves around the world. Everything's connected.
Isn't it, though? And speaking of connections, let's talk about U.S. Treasury bonds. Remember back on September 18th when the Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 50 basis points, 0.5% for those who don't speak finance?
And that initially sent bond yields down. Right? Yeah. Lower interest rates, lower bond yields. Makes sense.
Right. Except here's the thing. Since the beginning of October, those yields have been climbing back up, almost to pre-cut levels. And this rise just happens to coincide with, you guessed it, the growing anticipation of a Trump win.
Okay, I'm going to need a little help connecting the dots here. Why would bond yields go up if it looks like Trump might win?
It all boils down to expectations. What does the market expect in terms of future economic policies? Well, we know Trump has been a big proponent of tax cuts. And while those cuts might stimulate the economy in the short term,
in the long term, they could lead to a larger government deficit and eventually inflation.
Bingo! And the bond market knows this. They're essentially saying, hold on to your hats, folks, because things could get a little pricey if Trump gets his way.
That's wild. It's like this high-stakes game of chess, and most of us are just pawns. unaware of the bigger moves being made.
Life is a game, my friend.
Okay, so we got betting odds, social media, currencies, bonds, all seemingly pointing towards a Trump victory. What other unexpected clues are hiding in these market trends?
Let's talk about cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin. Trump has, expressed some positive opinions about crypto in the past.
He's never been one to shy away from an opinion, that's for sure.
True enough. And that's what makes this interesting from a market perspective. Some investors, they see a Trump presidency as meaning fewer regulations for cryptocurrencies. They think he'd be more open to innovation in that space than, well, a Harris administration.
So are we saying Bitcoin is getting a Trump bump?
It's certainly possible. Look, since October 11th, Bitcoin's jumped by over 10%. Now, is that all because people think Trump's going to win? Debatable, but it's a factor. It's like this digital crystal ball reflecting those political anxieties.
It makes you wonder if people are trading on more than just, like, market fundamentals these days, maybe a little political gambling thrown in.
Maybe. But let's switch gears from the digital world to something a little more, shall we say, tangible: steel. Steel. Trump's been hammering on about reviving American industries like steel and energy this whole campaign. Steel is interesting. It's more insulated from global events than, say, oil and gas.
So what's happening with steel prices?
Since October hit, the stock prices of big U.S. steel companies have gone up about 10%. Some people are putting their money where their mouth is, betting on a Trump win leading to this steel boom fueled by those infrastructure projects he loves to talk about and those protectionist trade policies we discussed earlier.
It really hits home how interconnected everything is. Even steel, something you wouldn't think would be affected by elections, is caught up in this political drama. Any other industries reflecting this Trump effect?
Let's talk about banks, specifically how Trump's been all about deregulation, about rolling back some of those rules that came in after the 2008 financial crisis.
So bank stocks are a bit of a canary in the coal mine when it comes to Trump's political fortunes.
You could say that, and guess what? Since mid-June, bank stocks have surged 22%. What's more, they've moved almost in tandem with the perceived ups and downs of the Trump and Harris campaigns. Oh yeah, when Harris first joined the ticket and was gaining momentum, bank stocks dipped. When Trump had that, shall we say, less than stellar debate performance against Harris back on September 10th, bank stocks faltered. But since October began, they've been steadily climbing. It's like the market is saying, get ready for a Trump win and the deregulation party that might follow.
It's almost like we're watching a financial thriller unfold in real time.
Yeah.
The fate of banks hanging on the outcome of this election.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It really underscores how intertwined politics and finance really are.
No kidding. Okay, so far we've got betting odds, social media, currencies, bonds, Bitcoin, steel, and even banks, all seemingly reacting to the possibility of a Trump presidency. What other unusual indicators are on this list?
This one might surprise you: prisons and detention centers. Now, in the U.S., a lot of these facilities are run by private companies, some of them publicly traded. Trump's made it very clear he wants to increase law enforcement and crack down on what he calls illegal immigration, detention, and deportation. That's all part of that. And that stance has a noticeable impact on the stock prices of these companies.
So investors are basically betting on an increased demand for these companies' services if Trump gets elected.
Right. Look at the GEO Group, one of the biggest players in this sector. Their stock has shot up 20% in the past month. It's like the market is saying, if Trump wins, these guys win. Kind of a stark reminder that even the most niche sectors can get swept up in all this.
Definitely gives you pause, doesn't it? It's not just about who sits in the Oval Office. It's about the ripple effects these decisions have on industries, on markets, on people's lives. We're not done yet, though, are we? We've still got those automotive industry trends to unravel. This Elon Musk angle seems particularly interesting.
You're right. We still need to touch on the automotive industry. It's fascinating, really, especially the contrast we're seeing between Tesla, that's Elon Musk's baby, and the more traditional car companies like General Motors.
Yeah, this is the one with Elon Musk, right? He's been pretty vocal about supporting Trump, so I would have thought Tesla stock would be going through the roof right now.
Well, it's not quite that straightforward. See, while Musk has personally endorsed Trump, their views don't exactly align when it comes to actual policies, especially regarding electric vehicles.
Right, because Trump spent a lot of time this campaign talking up those gas guzzlers, praising the fossil fuel industry.
Exactly. And he's even thrown in a few jabs at electric vehicles along the way. He might toss Musk a compliment now and then, but his overall stance is pretty clear.
So even with Musk's backing, the market's not convinced about Tesla's future under a potential Trump administration.
It's like they're seeing right through that endorsement. Since the start of October, Tesla stock has actually fallen by 13.6%. Investors are clearly wondering if those government subsidies and favorable policies for electric vehicles might disappear if Trump wins.
So what about those traditional car manufacturers like General Motors?
Yeah.
Are they feeling the Trump bump?
It seems so. Unlike Tesla, General Motors has actually seen their stock price climb by 11% this October.
So it's a good time to be a gas guzzler.
For now, maybe, but who knows what the future holds. This whole thing just goes to show you, these market indicators, they can tell a different story than what you see in the headlines. It's like the secret language, hinting at how different sectors are preparing for what they think is coming.
It's a powerful reminder that elections, they have consequences that reach far beyond who sits in the Oval Office. We're talking about the value of our money, the kinds of cars we drive, it all ties in.
Exactly. It's crucial to pay attention to these bigger trends, understand how they might impact us, regardless of who wins.
Well said. We've certainly covered a lot of ground today, listener, from those nail-biting polls and swing states to some pretty surprising market indicators. Who knew that the price of steel, the value of the peso, even the performance of Tesla could give us clues about this election? It's all connected.
It is. And while these indicators aren't a crystal ball, they highlight how interconnected everything is: politics, the economy, even our everyday lives.
It's a lot to take in, but that's what makes these deep dives so interesting, right? We hope you've gained some new insights into this election, maybe even some food for thought as we navigate these uncertain times. For now, stay curious, keep asking those tough questions, and remember, the world, it's a fascinating place, especially when you start looking beneath the surface.